this day possible. First of all, I love that Becky used my Facebook profile instead of a professional bio, because that allows me to show up here today as a disruptor, as a rebel with a cause, and also a possibilitator. It's safe to say that everyone here knows someone who has died or someone who has lost someone to substance-related death. Let's just take a breath to honor them. We also all know someone in recovery, so let's celebrate and encourage them to find one more day of life. So I woke up this morning thinking, why am I here? Why am I coming and speaking at this thing? And number one is, I don't want one more person to die an unnecessary death. Number two, I don't want anyone to lose someone without having had the chance to share a deeply loving relationship with them. Number three, I want people to live good lives, even if they're affected by substance use, to feel purpose, belonging, peace, and joy. I want our world to be softer, kinder, gentler, more loving and accepting, more open to helping others so fewer feel the pain that leads to ways of coping and surviving that ultimately damage or take their lives. I'm here to break the cycle of stigma and shame that leads to ongoing suffering for people, those who use and those who love them, those who have lost them, to change our view, our language, our understanding, and our actions. Why am I here? Because 30 years ago, I gave birth to a beautiful bouncing boy. A boy who had a bright light in his eye and was full of energy from the get-go. Because I loved this boy who would not live to see his 30th birthday. And the 29 years that I had with Nate have forever changed me. From the moment he was born, he has required me to learn, grow, change, and try different things, to search within for answers that the books and professionals could never satisfactorily provide, to become a better person, to challenge what I thought I knew, to challenge common stories and beliefs, the cultural norms. He's forced me to dig deep and to hold on tight through an intense and often painful journey I never would have imagined. Nate broke my heart open. For most of his life, we've struggled to understand him, to be there for him and with him, to fight for him, trying to find understanding, compassionate, and helpful supports for him to learn, grow, and be. From his birth in 1993 to his death 5 months ago, and forevermore, my life will never be what I thought it might have been. His life continues to ignite a fire within me, and his death stokes the urgency to help people find a better way, to bring more care, understanding, and compassion to those who walk similar paths, who are so often judged and misunderstood, to those who carry so much shame and self-loathing. He opened my mind and heart, and while I hate that he is gone, I love to see how he is still impacting me and others who knew him, and even those who never knew him. People are being moved to live, to show up to life differently, to extend more compassion and kindness. Nate was a joyful, energetic, loud, bright, happy, loving, laughing, moving, on-the-go little boy. He was sweet and affectionate. He was sensitive and caring. When he had a broken leg at age 6, he pulled Tigger aside at Disney World and said, "Don't bounce too much or you might break your leg like I did." He was a kid who worried about everybody else. He struggled in school and school struggled with him. He was smart, but he was not meant to sit quietly in a classroom for a whole day. So over the years, we sought support and diagnoses and labels, hoping to find the right one that would help him be successful. He was bullied and misunderstood. His challenges lay beneath the surface. He appeared bright and capable and competent, so people expected that if he would just try harder, he could certainly do better. That was a message he internalized for the rest of his life. So when it came time for recovery, if he would just try harder, he could do better. He shouldn't need to ask for help. He's 29 years old. He should know how to do this. It got in the way. Thank you. During high school, his substance use began. Marijuana was the only thing that made him feel peaceful, he told me when he was 16. He also had an eating disorder that became evident at that time, but no one knew how serious that was. And compared to drugs, it just seemed like a thing he did, nothing that we could deal with. In 2011, his hard work paid off, and he graduated with a Regents diploma, the thing that we wanted to believe was enough. That's what we were fighting for. If we could just get him to graduation, he'd be okay. Nate would tell you he went wrong, but the thing is, he didn't go wrong. Things may have looked good on the surface. He lived in a beautiful middle-class suburban neighborhood, had an involved, caring family who loved him, played Little League. We took family vacations. We helped out in the school. But clearly, beneath the surface, he was not feeling okay. He did what he could to quiet his mind, to calm his being. He did what he could to survive. Things got pretty rough after he graduated, and his substance use and eating disorder escalated. He found himself with freedom that he didn't know how to handle and a world that was too harsh for a kid like him. He found himself figuring out life on the streets at an early age, life in outpatient, inpatient, life behind bars. He knew what it was to survive, to not feel safe, steady, or truly free. And he also knew and felt the grounding of family love. He wrote intense, painful, and beautiful poems and raps to help process his life and in hopes of inspiring and supporting others. He created intricate, phenomenal art. He dreamed of becoming a famous rapper, hoping his music would speak to those with similar challenges. In the last 6 months of his life, Nate tried to find recovery. But unfortunately, he did not have the right support at the right time, and he believed he could handle more independence than he could. Without structure and support, he found it hard to navigate all the things of life, and he became increasingly unwell. Without coordinated care among his providers, he once again slipped through the cracks. Things spiraled out of control. Well, he tried to do this largely himself. He endured more trauma than we will ever know in his 14 years of use, including the deaths of too many of his friends, which truly broke his heart. He was courageous and incredibly strong and resilient. He tried to advocate for himself to get more help. Yet he was also somewhat ambivalent about receiving the level of help he may have needed. His brain was malnourished and chemically imbalanced, so making decisions was not easy. He did what he could to quiet his mind, to calm his being. He did what he could to survive. And Nate was and has always been more than his illness or his disabilities. In the last 6 months, he did the things that mattered to him the most. He wrote prolifically. He drew. He recorded and got his music out to the world. He rapped at open mic night and killed it. He lived in his own apartment. He worked until the illness took over. He had time with friends and family, which meant the world to him. Nate was a sensitive guy and is a beautiful soul who loves fiercely. He never wanted anyone to worry about him, but he worried about everyone and did his best to be there for them in times of need, to support and encourage them. He was fiercely independent, at times to his own detriment. He was funny and well-liked by many. Providers often commented on his huge potential. He was a leader and a teacher wherever he was, unafraid to speak up for others and to speak out against racism or unfair treatment, even within systems that aren't very open to such input. He was generous even when he didn't have the means to be. The best description of Nate ever was a complex child who defies categorization. Absolutely. Nate could not be boxed in or labeled. Unfortunately, as loving and generous as Nate was, he didn't readily extend that love to himself. He judged himself harshly. A month before he died, he told me that he didn't want to die, but he didn't want to live like this. It was hard for him to accept how much people loved him and cared about him. And he even shared with me just a few days before he died how addicted he was to how badly someone made him feel about himself. It seemed that fed his own self-image. On March 29th, 6 months to the day of his discharge from inpatient mental health to supportive living, Nate's heart, spirit, and body gave out and his life ended. We don't know yet how Nate died. And we probably won't know for 12 to 14 months because that's how many overdose deaths there are in our community. It's safe to say it was a result of a million accumulated things over a lifetime, or life was what took him. And now no one and nothing of this world can cause him pain anymore. And ever since then, the world's a little too quiet, a little less bright, and we try to find a way to go on. His absence leaves a gaping hole in our hearts of everyone who knew him and loved him. And I just want to share a few things that I've learned over these 14 years. And the number one is that we as parents are not powerless and that our involvement matters. Family is one of the biggest reasons that people seek treatment and recovery. We need to be involved. We bring expertise and experience about our family, our life, our loved one, along with the deepest love and care of anyone on the team. We need to learn how to be effective supports, safe places, collaborators, strong and healthy ourselves. It's critical that we find a way to live our own lives, to be healthy and happy no matter what happens with our child, that we can indeed be happier than our unhappiest child. True self-care is critical. It allows time for silence, learning to listen within, to trust your own knowing, and to honor your heart, body, and spirit. The pause is critical and can change everything. Yelling and telling is never going to build a trusting relationship where change is likely. I learned along the way that most of my anger was based on the fear that Nate was going to die. And once I realized that, I thought, well, that's pretty stupid. If he's going to die, I don't want him to die with me being angry at him. So I started to shift. And we talked about these things. I talked to him about, I'm afraid you're going to die. And if that's the case, we need to look at the quality of life. What kind of life do you want to live? How do I want to show up? How do I want to be there for him? Take that opportunity. Listen to your person. Once we decided to stop trying to save his life, our way, to force recovery on him, our way, and love him as he is for as long as he's here, and listen to him and let him take the lead, our relationship changed. What I wish I had known: harm reduction. How to work together to understand what he needed and how to safely help him meet those needs. Tough love isn't love, and it doesn't lead to change. My son hit plenty of rock bottoms, lost everything time and time again. And it wasn't until we started connecting, started listening and walking with him that things began to change, that we could build a relationship. I wish I had known that when we felt desperate enough to leave him homeless, feeling that we had done everything we could, there were other things we could have tried. Because we broke our own hearts in that moment. That never felt okay. But we didn't know anything else. I wish I had known the first 3 principles of the invitation to change, which is a model for families that is an approach based on evidence-based practices that work. It's based on compassion and kindness. The first principle is behaviors make sense. Substance use disorder, eating disorders are not choices or moral failings. They are responses to a pain that even the person may not understand. Responses that offer temporary relief before deepening the cycle of shame. If you can open your heart to that idea that somebody's behaviors make sense, and if you can get curious with them, what is this doing for you? What else could we try? Okay, I hear you. Instead of saying, you're wrong, you're stupid, why can't you just stop? What's wrong with you? What are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to me? Doesn't work. Listen. One size doesn't fit all. There are many paths to recovery, as has been talked about today. Allow your person to find their way. Some people will smoke a little marijuana. Some people will still drink alcohol, but let them find what works for them. Thank you. And ambivalence is normal. This is the third piece of helping with understanding, because too often we look at people and say, what's wrong with you? You said you wanted help. You told me just yesterday, and now today I find you overdosed. What's wrong with you? Well, you're asking me to jump off a cliff into the unknown. You're asking me to give up the only thing that I know consistently, reliably, quickly works for me, to trust that maybe the future will be better for me. We got to give a little leeway there. If you think of yourself and a big change you want to make in your life, we're usually pretty ambivalent about it. I know I want to stop eating so much sugar maybe, but I don't really want to. So I'm not going to go any more into the invitation to change, but if you want to learn more about it, come see me over at that fluorescent green tent later, because I really want families to know about this way of being. My hopes for those that are struggling right now, please know that there's hope. Know that people care. Let them help you find your way to a life that works for you. You do not have to do this alone. I swear to God, my son thought there was a gold star for him doing this all by himself, no matter how many times we said. Really, there's no shame in asking for support. For families, don't give up. My husband said it so beautifully at my son's memorial service. Yes, in ways our life is simpler. Yes, there is some relief that we don't have to get that 2 a.m. phone call. I would trade it in a heartbeat to have him back. And simpler is not better. Learn new, more effective ways to be with your person, to love and respect and work with them toward their path of recovery. Put love and understanding above all else. Admit that you may not know what's best. Open your heart and listen. Connect. Become a safe, trustworthy person so they don't have to lie to you. So their desperation and isolation don't take them out. Learn about invitation to change, craft, motivational interviewing. Go see Recovery Coach University and learn about recovery coaching. Yes. Forget tough love. Forget worrying about codependency and enabling. Love your people. For the professionals, meet them where they are. Walk strongly by their sides. Advocate for them when they're not able to advocate for themselves. My son was screaming out for help, but he was allowed more space and time than he had. There's a very fine line between honoring autonomy and independence and stepping in when you can see it's just not working for somebody. Come alongside them and say, man, I'm really worried about you. This doesn't seem to be working. What can we do? Together, what can we do? Work together across the fields. This is another thing we saw. First of all, it was incredibly hard for a young man with an eating disorder and a substance use disorder to find treatment. Nobody wanted to deal with him because they were so afraid he was going to die from his eating disorder, which he may well have. But I think if we could stop siloing the mental health, the substance use, the eating disorder, this and that, and everybody come together for what does this person need as an individual and get to the core issues, because I think those other things are the symptoms that we're seeing at the top, but they're not really what's going on. All you have to do is love on this person and find out how to help them. Put aside the forms and the laptops and look at the person that's sitting across from you. My son was so impressed with one counselor. He's like, she actually closed her laptop and listened to me. I think it was the first time in 14 years that it happened to that young man. Listen to them, ask them what they need, ask them what they want, ask them what's worked for them and what hasn't. If you're going to label them as resistant, maybe find out why they don't want to go back to the particular place you're recommending. There might have been a problem there. Help them to figure out what's realistic and take the steps they need toward a future they want to build. And for any of you who are here, you are alive. You've been given the gift of one more day. You have another chance. Let's use this chance, this moment, to create something good, to be part of creating the change we wish to see in the world. Let's recover together. And in closing, I just want to say my life's son was not a waste. His death is a catalyst. May he move people far and wide to open their hearts, extend a bit more kindness, open their minds to consider a new way of seeing and a new way of being. May he invite us to not look away, but to face the pain that has led to this substance use epidemic and overdose travesty head on. Let us look at how we understand, treat, love, and accept our little ones so maybe they won't feel a need to quiet their minds and numb their pain. Let us come together to create a world that is softer, kinder, gentler, more accepting, more open to differences, so that people don't seek the relief of a substance, so we can all break free from the cycle of shame and be more loving and compassionate to one another, so people aren't hurting so badly, so we as a people learn how to feel and to lean into one another as we do. So we don't need to hide away, hide or hold in our tears, silence our anger, deny our fear. Let's make it safe to be with one another as the human beings we are, beings that are not robots, beings who are meant to feel the full breadth and depth of this messy, complex human experience. Thank you.